Today's episode of Passionate Talk is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at books.passionatetalk.com. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Get your 30-day free trial and free audiobook at books.passionatetalk.com. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Passionate Talk. I'm your host, Gary Karp, and this is episode number 28. Today's conversation is going to be a little bit different from what you're used to hearing if you've been listening to me for a while. My guest today is Bill Lutz. Bill is a graphic designer and the owner and founder of Dragon Phoenix Media, a digital comic books company. Now, Bill is an unabashed geek, so most of this conversation we're going to be geeking out, talking about comic books, movies, Star Wars, Star Trek. We're going to talk a little bit about politics at the beginning because whenever Bill and I get together, politics usually comes up. But that's not going to be the main thrust of the episode. We're going to be celebrating all things geek. So right now, I want you to sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, maybe some tea, and get ready to geek out with my conversation with Bill. So you made a blech noise when I said flavored coffee. You don't like flavored coffee?
Not particularly, no. The only type of coffee that I like is I'll take my giant tub of coffee grinds, coffee, like Folgers, and I'll dump a whole thing of cinnamon in.
Wow. While you're making the coffee, while you're brewing it?
No. I take the whole thing, open it up, I dump cinnamon, mix it in, and then I'll have coffee brewed later on. It's just I know that cinnamon's good for the blood.
Yes, it is. Actually, I listened to a podcast called Bulletproof Coffee, and they recommend not cinnamon but butter being put in the coffee, which I think is very weird, but assumedly it works.
I'm not ready to try that. My coffee, I found that I like it with cinnamon, and I like having my coffee with half and half, or cream. Just not going to do the butter yet.
I still have to get you the non-dairy creamer, which is built on coconut cream. It's really, really good. It gives that same thickness and richness without being dairy. I love it. It's from a company called Califia Farms.
You mean Covfefe? But
not Covfefe. No, we're not doing Covfefe today. This is a Trump-free zone. Okay.
I don't have to talk about the orange buffoon. He makes an ass out of himself every day, and it's just never ending. And as far as his GOP butt monkeys, can I say that on a podcast?
You can say it on a podcast, of course. Go for it.
GOP butt monkeys. I'm just waiting for the elections.
Yeah, let's hope that the midterm elections, that the Dems turn out, because the one thing we know is that midterm elections are traditionally have a lower turnout rate, and Dems have a very hard time mobilizing their base to get out and vote.
Well, if you recall, in the second term of George W. Bush, when the Democrats took back the House and the Senate, I believe, it was because of idiotic choices made by then President Bush. God, I miss him, actually. And the resultant was the House flipped. Possibly we have something like this right now, but I don't know. This country has just gone completely on divergent extremes. Left is right is right, but no one can meet in the middle anymore. It's very disconcerting. It's, to me, the beginning of a civil war.
Oh, I won't go that far that it's going to be a civil war, but I do think that we're seeing the beginning of the end of the two-party system as we know it.
Which I think is a good thing.
Both sides are dirty. Both sides can't be trusted, and they're not working for the middle class. No. Either side is only working for their own self-interest and their own pocketbooks. So, folks, we talked a little bit about politics starting this thing, and this show is not usually about politics, but it is an important thing that's going on in the world. And while my views, I won't make any bones about it, I am predominantly a liberal believer. I am a progressive more than I am a conservative. I do understand that there is dirty tricks and filthy and criminals on both sides, and just blaming one of those sides and holding fast to your political beliefs because they are your ideology without acknowledging the other side is doing the same thing and that there may be some wrong on the other side is not going to solve the issue.
No, it's not.
And with that, we're going to steer away from politics, and I do thank the listeners for indulging that little bit, because you and I, Bill, we've known each other for about 6 years now, and we do tend to talk about politics when we get together because we have similar views, and it's just something that we enjoy discussing. And
hey, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, sure.
Can I run down and get another cup of coffee?
Go ahead. Go get your cup of coffee.
You got to have that coffee.
Bill has got to get his...
Café.
Covfefe, yes. Bill's going to get a cup of Covfefe, and that's the last political reference you're going to hear on this podcast today, folks. Bill is getting his morning cup of coffee now. He will return shortly with a freshly brewed cup of, well, whatever brand of coffee he drinks. We thank you for your patience.
Are you there?
I am here. You have your coffee.
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. If it's the one thing I've learned about you over the last 6 years, is that you don't mess with your coffee and you don't mess with your beer.
That's correct. And my coffee right now is in a giant mug with my one of my two favorite animated characters. I think you can figure out which two.
I can, because I know you, but why don't you tell your listeners who's on your coffee mugs?
Pinky and the Brain.
That's right. And that also is how you got your nickname. Bill has a rather interesting nickname. We call him Mouse. Matter of fact, when I first got introduced to him, I was introduced to him as Mouse, and it was about 2 weeks before I learned his name was Bill, because everyone called him Mouse. How'd you get that name?
Well, the whole Pinky and the Brain mouse fetish thing started when I really got hooked on the Animaniacs series. And Pinky and the Brain was always just something I totally laughed at. It was science fiction in nature, but with comic humor and typical Warner Brothers double entendre. So much double entendre, I'm surprised Pinky and the Brain didn't get banned. And I loved it. Totally loved it. Super genius mouse who tries to take over the world with a goofball assistant who I primarily think is smarter than the Brain. We won't get into that.
Oh, we can talk all day about whether Pinky is the smart one or Brain is. And I actually had a discussion with someone the other day who has your point of view. He says that Pinky was actually the smartest one of the two lab mice.
I think so too, but I just love the Narf, Zort, Traz, Point, Egad. I love that. I don't know what it is. It was just so zany and so stupid that you can let your brain go and enjoy it. And of course, when you watch Pinky and the Brain, likewise with all the Animaniacs cartoons, they reminisce of the classic 1930s, 40s, 50s style that Warner Brothers did for animation, which, as an animation student or anybody really knows, those were cartoons meant for adults. They were never meant for children.
Yep.
And our parents our grandparents would see these in the movie theaters. Before the movie came on, they'd have the news of the day, then they'd have some commentary, and then finally they'd have the cartoon just before the movie. I think that we're being robbed right now. I think we should have a cartoon before every movie. Granted, I think the Marvel movies are taking us back to a time where we can enjoy ourselves. The resurgence of Star Wars and all those they're making us feel like, go in the movies to enjoy ourselves, to be kids again, to have fun, to escape this crazy planet. I've never been to movies that are undesirable drama. I mean, I want drama. I can go outside and see it every day. The movies are a place for escapism. And that's what you pay this ridiculous amounts of money for. I think that we're slowly moving back into that now as a result with the Marvel movies, for example, Thor coming out yesterday, the Infinity War coming up eventually, Star Wars The Last Jedi, which I'm actually really excited to see more than I was about The Force Awakens.
Oh, wow. I saw the trailer for The Last Jedi, and I got chills watching it because I'm really interested in knowing what is Luke's path with this, because it sets him again down a dark path where he turned his back on everything, and just watching Rey and her brother Oh God, I can't remember. Kylo Ren, thank you. Come together, and him, and Kylo Ren offering to join forces with Rey, and we don't know where that's going.
Well,
I just can't wait.
Looking at it from a scene point of view, Rey was in one specific scene and Kylo was in the other. I don't think they were the same scenes. I think it was a deliberate attempt by the video editor and Lucasfilm Disney to make it look like, oh, we're going to have gray Jedi finally. Which I think...
Well, I actually think that this is where it's leading. I'm in that camp that believes that these 3 films are going to introduce the Gray Jedi. I really do.
Well, if you've read the Star Wars novels, the Gray Jedi were introduced during the after the Empire Strikes Back, during the Yuzong Vong Wars of the series novels that were great, and they were basically bringing in storylines about how the Jedi can balance in between. Mace Windu is an example of a Jedi that balanced in between right and left, dark and light. And that's me being a Star Wars geek, too. I mean, not only do I like Star Trek, I do kind of like Star Wars, too.
Folks, if you're listening, you can probably tell that Bill is at all things geek. He's an unabashed Star Trek, Star Wars comic book fan.
Fantastic Four, best comic. I wish they'd bring it back.
Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, because I thought they actually were bringing the Fantastic Four back.
Well, there's rumors. Marvel is doing a great tease for everybody. When the Fantastic Four comic book was canceled due to the fact, as far as I understood it, the intense rivalry between Disney Marvel and Fox Marvel, and Fox being the purveyors of fantastic filth that came out with those 3 movies, they wanted to get the rights back and bring the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe. However, Fox refused to do it. Then President... what's his name? Josko Humaner or something. He's the head of Disney and all things Marvel. Said, then fine, there'll be no Fantastic Four. And they terminated everything. No merchandising, and they cut the comic out. Very, in my opinion, a stupid idea to do, because the Fantastic Four is what started comic books back up again. It's the flagship comic for everybody. Granted, you may or may not like the FF because it is the epitome of the true dysfunctional family. But you can't simply... I don't know. To me, it's a cornerstone for Marvel Comics. That 4 is part of Marvel Comics, makes Marvel Comics. Because the Fantastic Four were the first superheroes introduced that did not have a secret identity. They were family first, adventurers second, superheroes third.
I never thought about it that way, but you're right. And folks, you can tell Bill has a great passion for this, which is all that Passionate Talk is about, is what makes all of us tick. And Bill's love of comic books and all things in geekdom, I would safe to say, led him to do what he's doing today. He is an excellent graphic artist and graphic designer. He has actually started his own comic book firm called Dragon Phoenix Media, and they've got several titles out right now. So, Bill, can you tell us a little bit about Dragon Phoenix Media and why you started that?
Dragon Phoenix Media was started many years ago between myself and Glenn E. Smith, who is a friend of mine I also met about 10, 11 years ago through Star Trek Phase 2, which we can talk about a little bit later on. And he is a very prolific and very excellent writer, whereas I try to illustrate all his writings. We did several issues of a Star Trek Phase 2 comic book that sort of got off the ground a little bit, but it was for free and it was exacting. Through there, we met Rob Barnes, who is from New Zealand, and he is actually the senior colorist of the team. He is a phenomenal artist as well. Rob and I both love comic books. He is a complete and utter Green Lantern nut, whereas I am a Fantastic Four freak. And Rob and I have been working together on the comics, on the drawing part now for about 6-7 years. We brought in Dragon Phoenix Media, we created the website, and we've been trying to put out books slowly. Now, all of us have personal lives. So we thought by bringing in one more person in with a financial and a different aspect of looking things would help us out. And that's when Charles Root joined our group. And he
And I think that's, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I really think what you're saying here is important. Number one, in the fact that you're pulling your team from all over the world. And that's the one great thing that the internet affords all of us, is to be able to collaborate with other people regardless of where they are. Your colorist is in New Zealand.
correct.
I know that you live in Pennsylvania. Charles Root lives, it's either upstate New York or right on the border near Vermont.
Charles Root lives in Vermont, just outside of Burlington. Glenn Smith lives in Colorado Springs. I live in Philadelphia. So yeah, we are four guys doing comic stuff who basically don't live next door to each other.
And I know that with your work with Phase 2, you met another wonderful graphic designer, special effects guy who is working also on the Outer Rim project, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And he's in Australia, and he's one of the best CGI guys I've ever seen or ever met in my life.
In my opinion, he rivals Tobias Ritter. And Tobias has got a staff and a team and a server farm and everything. Henry Gibbons is his name, is exceptional. Also, there is Carwyn Morris. Forgive me if I said your name wrong, who is from England, who is actually moving to Hong Kong soon. He's also joined our SFX team. And the way I can draw an image in 5 minutes, he can do that in a computer. It's incredible. As soon as he's stabilized in Hong Kong, we're bringing him back in to help work on stuff with the Outer Rim.
And this is great. This is truly a global environment and a global economy and a global opportunity for all of us. Hong Kong, Australia, Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Anywhere you are, you can start the company that you want and you can follow your dreams and you can do it. The other thing that I think that you said was very important is that you brought in all these artists, but you needed that financial mind, which is why you brought Root in. And that is something that everyone should really think about, especially in endeavor and holistic endeavors, that we all go in these things because we want to make a difference in the world. We want to bring our art in the world. We want to heal the world or inspire the world. But unless we have a good financial mind behind us, it's never going to take off. So that's the one piece that I think people really should think about when they're starting their businesses.
Well, one of the reasons I did bring Charles Root in was because of his ability to literally cut through all the BS and say it like it is. And while Dragon Phoenix Media is not really financially fluid as of yet, we have a long way to go, having him aboard does focus things. And he is also one of the best people to encourage us, regardless of a situation, whether we get down or depressed. I mean, we have had some problems because Rob is in college right now. I'm back in college right now. Glenn is working crazy hours, and Charles is starting to work crazy hours. So we have to watch our full-time careers first before we get back to Dragon Phoenix Media. And we realize that this is an issue, pardon the pun, with some of our readers. But we are now working to better everything. Once Rob finishes his college tour, we are probably going to be pounding out issues. As myself in college as well, it's difficult. You're trying to balance everything between work, DPM, video editing, life in general. I mean, it's an adventure.
So you've told us about the challenges involved in starting a company, really a bootstrap company, because you're doing this all with your own time, all with your own resources, all with your own monies.
Yeah.
You told us about the challenges of balancing that life with your work and your hobbies, and that would really go to the biggest challenge. Could you share with us one of the biggest success stories you've had with GPM?
One of the biggest success stories is that we have viewers all over the planet. We have people
That's right.
checked out our website all over the planet in places that you would not believe have been checked out. We got hits from Iraq. We got hits from all the way into South Asia. I think we got a hit from Iran, which I was really shocked because I really thought Homeland Security was going to be knocking at my door for that one. We're all over the country. I think that all over the country, all over the planet. We have, I swore I wouldn't say, we have hits in England, we have hits in Scotland, we have hits in Ireland, France, Germany. I think the only country we're not in is North Korea.
Well, come on, let's be real. Okay.
So that's just giving you an idea. I mean, I think when we started hit about being in Iraq or Iran, I think we just fell off our chairs in hysteria. It's like, wow.
Now, it sounds like that this is your dream. This is really your passion, Dragon Phoenix Media and drawing. And I know that you are an extremely talented drawer. Let me try that one again. You are an
cartoonist.
you are an extremely talented illustrist. What's that word again, Mouse? Illustrator?
I'm not an illustress. Wow, I don't wear my dress during the weekends, Gary.
Okay, so
illustrator.
He is, folks. What I'm trying to say is he's a great illustrator. Okay, and he has done work for me. He has designed the logo for this podcast. As a matter of fact, when I reached out to design the logo for this podcast, I wanted it to be something special. I wanted it to be something that reflected my personality and popped and was colorful. And I went to Mouse to get this done. He has done my logo for my coaching business. He is doing the logos for, or I should say, he's doing the covers for my books that are going to be coming out. He is an excellent illustrator. So, Mouse, why don't you talk to us about how your love of art began?
I can't remember because I was always drawing my entire life. As far back as I can remember, I remember my first real drawing that connected my head was I drew a dolphin. Believe it or not, ironically, considering your logo is a dolphin.
I love dolphins.
And from what I've been told from family members, don't ever leave me alone with a crayon on a wall.
So you redecorated their house every time you had a box of Crayolas.
Well, ironically, the Fantastic Four cartoon was on in the 60s, and I was maybe 1 or 2 years old. And that number 4 stuck in my head. And apparently, I drew it the hard way. Up, down, then around, not the other way. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the signs I was drawing, because then I was told I drew all over the walls, I made forms. Then I started drawing in school, and I just kept going and going. I love to draw. And then I decided, with just making college choices, that I would pursue a career in illustration and cartooning. I wish it was going to be cartooning, but I had a teacher at School of Visual Arts that opened my eyes to illustration as well.
So you're a graduate of SVA?
1988, graduate of SVA in fine arts, even though my aspect is commercial arts, illustration, cartooning, multimedia. Back in the 80s, we didn't have that. So technically, I say Bachelor of Fine Arts, but I am multimedia.
Yes, you are. And let's touch on that a little bit, because we talked about it a little earlier. In addition to your drawing, your illustrating, your logo design, your book covers, you also are now branching into video editing. And You've done a little directing for some of these fan films that are all over the web, and were involved with one of the better fan films out there that was known as Star Trek Phase 2, which has since ceased operations, but has been turned into an absolutely amazing museum piece that people can go and walk through the sets of Star Trek, the original series, as they were actually laid out in the original Desilu studios. James Cawley has done an incredible job in recreating this and opening it to the public.
Yes, he has. And I congratulate him for transitioning into something that the public can enjoy and understand and see how things were made back in the time when science fiction was not exactly a hot topic. Whereas the country was dealing with westerns and junk like that on television. The advent of Star Trek changed everything.
Okay, so what was it about Star Trek and Star Wars, I know we've talked about Star Wars earlier, that inspired you or piqued your curiosity? What was it that lit that passion in you about Star Wars and Star Trek?
They opened your mind. There's more out there than what you've got.
Okay, could you expand on that, please?
Allows you to imagine, develop, to create your imagination. I always preferred and I always enjoyed new and exciting things. I find regular things tedium and bored at times. I'm always looking to experience new adventures. Star Trek, with its storyline and its idea that everybody is good, everybody is okay, everybody's accepted, was one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed the show. Same in Star Wars too. I mean, Star Wars is basically about good and evil, and I think where it's going, I'm not sure where it's going now, but it's still fun to go see.
Well, Star Wars was actually Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. If you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's work and his ideology on storytelling, Lucas actually took Star Wars from The Hero's Journey, and it's a classic tale that's told throughout literature all the time. We just didn't know when we were watching the original films, and we're both in our 50s right now, so we remember standing online waiting and waiting and waiting to watch Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Those were the good old days.
We thought we thought the hero's journey we were watching was that of Luke's, and then when the sequels or the prequels came out on Force Awakens and oh my God, I can't remember the other two films.
Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith.
Thank you. When those three films came out, we actually discovered that the hero's journey we were watching was Darth Vader's, which blew my mind. I thought it was great. Regardless of what you thought of the first film and Jar Jar Binks, okay?
Well, here's a little side note that I understood as I read on a couple of local sources. The idea of Darth Vader, of course, the big bad guy, but encasing him in a metal suit with a scarred up face, practically being evil, was based on another character, which I totally love.
And that character was?
Dr. Doom.
Going right back to the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
Folks, everything comes back to Reed and Sue Richards. Just remember that.
Well, no, Victor Von Doom is the crazy uncle. Keep that in mind, too.
Dr. Doom? Victor Von Doom is Reed's uncle?
No, he's just the crazy uncle. Think of him like the extended family. You know, you have Reed, you have Sue, and you have Johnny. Johnny and Sue are brother and sister. Reed's brother-in-law. Ben is God's father to the kid, to Franklin. Well, they have a daughter, Valeria, and her godfather is Victor Von Doom.
Okay, so it's an extended family, basically.
Basically, and Dr. Doom's the crazy uncle.
Wow, wouldn't you just love to have holiday dinner over at the Reed Richards?
The Baxter Building would be one hell of a Christmas time. You know.
That was a lot of fun. I love getting together and talking with Bill because every time we do, we just geek out. We share the same love for comic books and science fiction and big old popcorn movies. I love the story that Bill told us about how he discovered that he was meant to be an artist and a graphic designer when he took the crayons at a young age and he started drawing the logo for the Fantastic Four all over the walls of his house. The story he told us about how he got his nickname, Mouse, was wonderful. And trust me, folks, he is Mouse. He does fancy himself as the maniacal Pinky who wants to take over the world. This is Bill in a nutshell. This was a great conversation, and folks, if you enjoyed it, Bill will be back with us on Wednesday, and we're going to geek out some more. Predominantly, we're going to be talking about Star Trek, the Star Trek universe, the JJ-verse, and the new show Star Trek Discovery. So if you love Star Trek, you don't want to miss that. Bill is also going to share his passion about education and the importance of education in our lives during that Wednesday's conversation. But for right now, that's all the time we have for today. So follow your dreams and passions and manifest the life that you choose. Hey folks, it's Gary. 2018 is right around the corner, and a new year means a new you. Right now, you could pick up a free copy of my best-selling book, Clarity is Power, The 5 Steps to Creating Empowering Goals That Will Excite and Inspire You, by visiting books.passionatetalk.com. In Clarity is Power, you'll learn the 5 steps for designing and achieving your goals in the next year. So visit books.passionatetalk.com and pick up your free copy of Clarity is Power. You'll also receive a free 30-day trial to audible.com.